Yes, people, it is good to be back on the Sports Hub. And this is my second live watch-along I'm doing after the second leg of the League Cup semi-final between Arsenal and Chelsea. And I've sort of switched around the arrangement so that the computer plugs and the TV plugs are on the same side, which means that I don't have to keep craning my head backwards to, catch the action. Everything's up close in HD, and I am a happy chappy. And we are here, of course, bringing you the first leg of the 2026 Europa League Semi-Final between Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa, live from the City Ground in Nottingham, England, in the UK. And of course, the winner of this match will go to the final against either Sporting Braga or Freiburg, who are playing in the other semi-final. So we will have another English finalist. That's 3 finalists in 2 successive competitions. Will we have a second consecutive English champion? Today, of course, will be a match between 2 teams that were European powers back in the day. Forest, of course, were European champions in 1979 and 1980 under the late, great Brian Clough, may he rest in peace. And several members of that wonderful team have since tragically passed on, and I'm sure their memories will be kept alive. And of course, Aston Villa were European champions in 1982 under Tony Barton. He worked with Ron Saunders' team, of course. And in between, Liverpool managed to win the European Cup by beating Real Madrid in the final in 1981. So a pretty good age for English teams, and wonderful to see a couple of Midlands teams, I should say, doing very well. Now, I'm also going to let you know that we will provide you some updates from the other semi-finals, of course, of the Europa League and the Conference League that are being played tonight, including, of course, from Shakhtar Donetsk against Crystal Palace, which is being played live from the home stadium of Wisla Krakow in Poland. But as I've said, it is, of course, Forest against Villa. Kickoff will be in another 10 minutes or so, and I can start with the team news, starting, of course, with the home team. Now, according to BBC Sport, Vitor Pereira will be having a sort of a 4-4-2 lineup, and this looks a very strong team indeed. 3 changes, of course, from the team that plunged the Stadium of Light into darkness to the tune of 4-0 in the first half and 5-0 in the second. Elliot Anderson gets a start in what is a 4-man midfield with Omari Hutchison, ex-Chelsea player, ex-Arsenal player too, on the right, and Captain Morgan Gibbs-White on the left, although this could possibly morph into the usual 4-2-3-1 that Pereira likes to play. But I think they're hoping that Forest's front 4 can do what they did to Sunderland so effectively and stop Villa from playing from the back, force them to make some mistakes, which they could very easily do. Stefan Ortega is, of course, the designated Europa League goalkeeper in place of Matt Sells. No place for Angus Gunn, even in the squad. Sorry, Scotland fans. At least you'll get to see Super John McGinn, eh? And the back 4 is, of course, Neco Williams at left back, Aina at right back with Milenkovic and Morato in the middle. As I've said, Dominguez and Anderson are right in the centre of that 4-man midfield. It could morph into a 4-2-3-1 with both of those players in the double pivot, and Hutchison, Gibbs-White, and possibly Igor Jesus playing behind Mark Wood, although it could very well be that they will start as part of a 2-man strike force. So Unai Emery and his defence have got a lot of work to do tonight. And if you take a look at the subs, a selection of, first-team squad members and also some youth players, and that sort of explained by the ridiculously high squad numbers. Zach Abbott is the last one I'd recognise, followed by some interesting names. This Hanks is no relation to Tom Hanks, who's a big-time Villa fan, I'm sure. Willows is, of course, the 3rd goalkeeper in the squad, along with the Belgian international Matt Sells, who has once again been one of the Premiership's top keepers this season. And Ortega's former City teammate James McAtee also finds a place in the squad, as does club captain Ryan Yates, who has been with the team during some pretty difficult times in the Championship. How he would love to have a little slice of history for himself by lifting the Europa League trophy as club captain. And of course, we have the Aston Villa starting lineup with one notable change from the team that performed very poorly at Craven Cottage in losing 1-0. Lamare Bajada drops to the bench after a pretty poor display. Amadou Onana comes in a huge boost as he slots in the double pivot in that 4-2-3-1. Not too many worries about the front four, although Buendia does look as though he can be bullied. So he's going to have to really do a lot of hard work. And of course, there's always going to be the option of bringing on Harvey Elliott from the bench, although in all likelihood, Emery will bring on Leon Bailey. And frankly, I'm not too sure why he'd want to do that, because Bailey's best days are far behind him. And then that back four of Concert and Torres in the middle with Cash and Digne as fullbacks, that can very easily be targeted, and they're going to have to be very careful playing from the back, especially Matthew Cash, who will be returning to the City ground as an opposing player, having played for them back in the day. And Emi Martinez, of course, in goal. Hopefully he should stay fit. And as for the subs, Sweden captain Victor Lindelof is on the bench. I would have liked him to start tonight. Tyrone Mings, also another defensive option. Harvey Elliott, on loan from Liverpool, of course. Not been a good season for him, a dreadful season where he's literally just been picked for squads but hardly seen any game time. He will, in all likelihood, be sent back to Liverpool. Andres Garcia is Cash's replacement at right back, although Lamari Bajada could come on and do a job. Tammy Abraham, Jadon Sancho, options off the bench as well. Douglas Luiz was also with Nottingham Forest earlier this season, but he secured a wonderful return to Villa in January. Ian Matson, the backup left back. And the two backup goalkeepers, of course, are Marco Bizot and the number 64, Wright. Hopefully it will be all right on the night for the Villa. And, of course, just another reminder, the Europa League Semi-Final, first leg Nottingham Forest against Aston Villa. And already we've got some comments coming in. Ooh, Moideen Bray, good to see you. You were in the stream last night for the Atletico Arsenal watch-along. Nice to see you again. Hanno's not going to be able to do this today, so I am filling in for him, but he will be dropping in and out as and when he can make it. And we've got Chelsea fan who's a big supporter of the channel. Yep, confirmed. So I'm actually an Arsenal fan, and I did come in at halftime and near the end of the game last night to offer my thoughts. But tonight I am actually, rooting for Aston Villa with the strong Arsenal connection of Unai Emery and Emi Martinez. And I'm sure our Chelsea fans will look no further than Aston Villa to find 4 ex-Chelsea players in the team. And as Hanno said, if Villa were to finish 5th and win the Europa League, Chelsea could find a backdoor into the Champions League. And my name's Manny, by the way. And Chelsea fan can confirm that. So your team is Manchester City. Stefan Ortega playing in goal for Forest should be quite interesting indeed. And another reminder, keep hitting the like button and sub to the channel. We've got Nems Talks in the building. Hello to you. I don't know if you were in the stream yesterday, but big up to you and thank you for joining in. And some more cordialities being done. And I'm not too sure for whom you feel bad, but I appreciate your sympathy. And of course, we were actually trying to use a background for this, but with my camera not working too well, it would have caused some problems. So I've gone back to my usual habit of preparing these banners myself just for you, the work I've done. I hope you will appreciate it. And just going to find out which channel will be hosting it, because for some stupid reason, I've actually got Braga against Freiburg being shown by 2 channels and not just the one. And let's see which one it will be. But, okay. And this looks like it's going to be the Braga one. So, come on. Yep. We are at the City ground. I see the flags flying. Rather balmy evening in London. I don't think the sun's gone down yet. And that is, of course, summer in the UK for you. Yep. 2 magnificent Midlands clubs. Big names. Appreciate that. I kind of figured that it would be directed at me. But, hey, I mean, we're still in the semi-finals of the Champions League. We're still technically top of the league, but City do look favourites to, overtake us. And if you do overtake us, I mean, if we are overtaken by Manchester City, that's Moedeen's team, we just have to be honest with ourselves and say that City will deserve to win the league. But it is not over. Not by any means. And we see the teams in the tunnel right now. Villa, of course, will be wearing their white colour away strip, while Forest are in their home red strip. I was wearing a red shirt, but I changed it. Didn't have a white shirt I could use. I didn't know that Villa were going to be wearing white tonight, but it is what it is. And we've got the referees, of course. Big Chelsea fan. Nice. And so we've got the teams walking out, certainly looking very resplendent in their respective uniforms. And the sun hasn't even gone down in Nottingham. A very lovely summer evening. John McGinn and Morgan Gibbs-White leading their teams out. And of course, I am not going to mute the screen so that we can hear the Europa League anthem. I do not like the Europa League anthem. Hopefully, whoever wins this will get to experience Champions League football next season. And of course, Aston Villa are reasonably safe in the top 5 in the Premier League. So they will be expected to secure Champions League football given the run-in they have. They'll be playing Spurs this weekend, of course. A Spurs team that are literally walking wounded with 2 of their star players now out injured. Xavi Simons, of course, will be missing the World Cup. Dominic Solanke will be out. I don't know if he'll make Thomas Tuchel's squad for the World Cup. And as you can see, the nervous energy is quite palpable. All the pressure, of course, will be on Villa because they are higher in the league and they are sort of putting a lot of hopes on winning this trophy. Nottingham Forest, of course, are just delighted to be here. But as the banner says, the European heritage formed more than 40 years ago has now since been rediscovered. Amazing how these English teams have been able to do so well in the European competitions, probably due to the high tempo with which they normally play. But Aston Villa have been able to break the mould in being able to juggle European football and league football. And confirmation, of course, of the starting lineups with Gibbs-White on the left and Hutchinson on the right of a 4-man midfield with Chris Wood and Igor Jesus up front. And the usual back 4, Aina and Williams fullbacks, Marato Milenkovic in the middle, and Stefan Ortega in goal. And we'll find out who the referees are. The referee is and linesmen are. João Pinheiro from Portugal, an all-Portuguese lineup of Bruno Jesus, Luciano Maia, Thiago Martins, and Andre Narciso on VAR duty. And Gibbs-White jogging over to the middle to receive the Aston Villa pennant from his counterpart, John McGinn. Anglo-Scottish affair in a way. Super John McGinn, Scotland vice-captain. An Aston Villa captain, an Aston Villa legend, one of many players in the Aston Villa squad who have been there since the days of Dean Smith. And confirmation, of course, of the 4-2-3-1 with McGinn on the right and Buendia on the left. It's actually Buendia on the left and Rodgers in the middle now here, but they will be expected to interchange. Watkins on his own up front. Reasonably stacked bench compared to Nottingham Forest's, of course. And Villa, of course, are hoping to make sure they secure their passage into the final, and they definitely want to win a trophy. Now, as promised, we will be providing you updates from Crystal Palace versus Shakhtar Donetsk in Krakow, of course. But for now, this is the focus of the night. Nottingham Forest against Aston Villa. I'll just edit this. Okay. And we haven't yet kicked off, but we're seeing the huddles right now. And a few more comments already coming in. Thank you very much indeed. And I'll get to your comments on the Champions League a little bit later, but I really appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. And of course, back to the action. Cash, of course, a former Nottingham Forest defender, having spent quite a few years there before joining Villa under Dean Smith. And we started with Nottingham Forest having kicked off. They'll be moving from right to left, and they're just playing around I beg your pardon, it's Aston Villa who have kicked off, and Aston Villa are attacking the goal from right to left. And it's Pau Torres now to Luca Digne. Finds Tielemans, and Tielemans already under a little bit of pressure, but he finds Konsa with a back pass. And once again, Martinez receives that. And the best thing that Emi can do is, literally at this point, I wanted him to punt it further up, but once again it's back with Konsa, who sends it to Cash. Cash tries to send it forward and does find Watkins, but not the best connection between him and Buendia, and Forest get the ball back. And it is Neko Williams, the left back, who passes it back to Aina, who was on the left. And it's with Ortega now, who sends it to Hutchison on the wing. And Hutchison tries to send it into the middle, and Wood finding Jesus there with a pretty good header. Jesus with a cross into the penalty area, but that was a bit too far, and Gibbs White was never going to get there. And, well, Forest so far have not quite been at their pressing best the way they were against Sunderland, and you see Vitor Pereira just calming things down. Vitor Pereira having masterminded a fine victory over his former club, Porto, in the previous round, although it must be said that Forest only drew with Porto because of a bizarre Porto own goal and ended up winning the home leg 1-0. This should be offside, I think, against Watkins. I don't see why the flag hasn't been raised yet, but for the moment, he's passed it to, I think that's Morgan Rogers. Well, he's not going to take, he took a shot, it was blocked. And Onana with his first touch of the ball. It's going to be important to see how the two Belgians, both, of course, teammates for the Red Devils of Belgium, will operate. Digne preferred to Matson of late, who certainly can overlap and whip in a good cross. And, of course, we saw that to good effect when he actually came on for Ian Matson as a substitute at home to Sunderland. Villa had inexplicably let a 3-1 lead slip to go to 3-3, and they could have lost it, but Emi Martinez provided a fine save from Habib Diarra, and barely 30 seconds after that, Villa scored the winner through Tammy Abraham. Martinez called into action there after a bit of a skirmish in the box. Brilliant work from Hutchison there, evading Digne, firing in the cross, but Jesus, a bit of a miscommunication there. Wood taking a bit of a swing at that, not being able to get there. And this is going to be interesting now because, well, Villa have done well to keep that in play. Well done to Matthew Cash. And there is going to be some space there on the left for Digne to run, and he gets the ball, and now he can cross it, but that cross needed to be higher. Milenkovic easily heading that away. But it is back with Onana. Konsa. Torres. Preferred to both Mings and Lindelof, but that was a pretty poor pass, easily intercepted. Aina now. And that's sent forward to, well, that was Jesus who had the ball, but Hutchison wasn't really able to make much use of it, I'm afraid. And we've got a prediction here, 2-1 Aston Villa. I want to big up Taran from BBK Sports, who actually predicted on his stream that Forest might end up winning 2-1 tonight. But of course, both teams have already met in the Premiership. Villa winning 3-1 at Villa Park and drawing here at the City Ground in their more recent fixture. And of course, for that fixture, Emi Martinez had to withdraw from that game with a slight injury in the warm-up, which meant that Marco Bizar replaced him. Luca Digne with the ball. Certainly expected to be a big part of Didier Deschamps' squad for the World Cup. And he'll have some tough competition to nail down that starting left-back spot. And that throw goes straight to Ortega, who probably won't be in Germany's squad, but who was called up for, I think it was a Nations League fixture not too long ago. Milenkovic. Back to Ortega. And through Anderson, Forest can try and move forward. It is with Gibbs White. Back to Anderson. You can recognise Gibbs White, of course, with the shiny yellow captain's armband. And that is Dominguez, who tried to move forward. Dominguez has the ball, passes it to Aina. Aina looking for some work there, but well, it was a rather risky, quick back pass there to Martinez, but he dealt with that quite well. And that should be a goal kick to Aston Villa. So almost immediately you can see Forest trying to press quite hard, but credit to Villa, they've held firm so far. And I can also report that there is, of course, an early goal in the Donetsk Palace game. Palace are ahead 1-0. Ismail Assar putting Palace ahead from Jean-Philippe Mateta assist. So it's Shakhtar Donetsk 0, Crystal Palace 1. And as far as the other scores are concerned, it's still 0-0 in the other semi-final between Andoni Areola's former team, Rayo Vallecano, and the Strasbourg team, coached by ex-Bournemouth manager Gary O'Neill. So let's big up my friend Craig Beasley from Up the Cherries in All Departments. We've done some pretty good work together, on his channel, of course, and we're still doing some work with the Football Has a Problem series. He'll be watching this with some interest. And, of course, Crystal Palace-Strasbourg final would be very, very interesting indeed. Digne with the throw. And Villa win the first corner of the game. Dominguez being forced into a somewhat unorthodox header, which goes behind him. And confirmation, of course, of the scores. Ismail Assar with the first goal of the night for Crystal Palace. No goals in the other three games. But here's an update. Sporting Braga have just taken the lead against Freiburg. Tiknaz on 8 minutes. And this Braga team also features Portugal legend João Moutinho on the bench, 146 caps for the Portuguese team, formerly, of course, of Wolverhampton Wanderers. The corner was short, nothing very much about it, but a chance to cross it back into the penalty area. It's met by Ezri Konsa, and Aina does block him, but is still back with Konsa. And quite cleverly, Konsa wins a throw off Aina, so a good period of possession now for Aston Villa. It will be interesting to see how well they do with it. And I think that was actually Buendia who put that cross in, not John McGinn. McGinn is so encouragingly left-footed, it's scary. Andre Onana immediately making a nuisance of himself. Definitely one of the best defensive midfielders in the Premier League right now. Very, very underrated. Thrown to the penalty area, headed away. Buendia is glancing backwards, headed back to Digne. It's with Tielemans now, hoping to find Digne, but a clever back heel finds Emi Buendia. Not the best of passes, though, from the little Argentinian. Hutchison now. Back to Aina. Hutchison. And he can certainly run with the ball, but very nearly running into trouble, but he finds his way out of it. But a brilliant tackle there for Mamadou Onana. And that is why he's so crucial to the team. Rogers there hoping to find a pass, but sadly he couldn't, wasn't able to get the connection to Watkins. No foul there from Tielemans either. And so it is back with Tielemans. A shot on goal, and that is very well saved by Stefan Ortega. First shot on target, first shot in anger. Make of that what you will. But some brilliant tackling there. That wasn't a foul. And a nice layoff there from Rogers to Tielemans, who could definitely take a shot. You could say it was at a good height for the keeper, and certainly, or the keeper of Ortega's quality would have had that covered anyway, but still had to make the save. And it's Villa's second corner of the game. In fact, João Moutinho is starting for Braga tonight. Oh, a well-whipped-in corner. And, McGinn there with an attempt at a nice volley, but that was completely an air kick. He does keep it in play, sends it into the penalty area with his wrong foot, and Cash ends up inadvertently putting it out of play. But, this is a good period of possession now for Villa. Certainly... Certainly an interesting passage of play, and I think Unai Emery will be expecting a little bit more from his team at this rate. And Konsa smartly winning a throw in off his England teammate, Morgan Gibbs-White. So a Portuguese manager against a Spanish manager. A nice study in contrasting styles. And I was expecting, Forest to have the better of the game so far, but surprisingly, it's Villa who've looked really good. Well, there was a foul conceded there. And I've got to give the referee credit because he is allowing the game to flow, not really, stopping the game unless necessary. João Pinheiro there, the referee in question. Aina, Hutchison, passing it back to Milenkovic in the back four. And that is Morato hoping to send it forward. But I think it was Neco Williams who was overlapping. He was never going to get there. Neco Williams, another of those players who's very comfortable on either side of the full-back area. Certainly plays right back and left back quite well. More often used as a right back with Wales, but a left back tonight with Forest. And Emi Martinez with the ball. He's going to have to be careful to avoid time wasting here because he is certainly an easy target for referees when it comes to being cautioned for time wasting. And the last thing he would want is to get a few bookings too many. Aina, they're sending it into the penalty area, but Torres with a smart header away. It is back, of course, with Aina, and Buendia does some good work in, hoiking the ball away for a throw. And it's apparently Buendia's upturn in form, which has resulted in Elliott not being given too many games. But Harvey Elliott also, with that huge 35 million quid obligation slapped on him, was never going to be a target for Villa, a potential acquisition with that much money potentially being spent. And Villa, of course, being strapped for finances, could not afford to make that payment. And they would have had to make that payment if he had started or played in 10 Premier League games. But he is in the squad for the Europa League, so we'll see if he comes on tonight. That is Milenkovic, who sends it to Morato. Gibbs-White. Anderson now, back to Milenkovic. Anderson again. Aina. I love the fact that it's an all-Premier League clash. Certainly has that feel to it. And I can definitely say that this is a much better quality than last year's all-English Europa League final between Spurs and Manchester United. As an Arsenal fan, I was fit to be tied to see Spurs win that Europa League, but I was delighted for Ange Postecoglou, who, of course, went on to manage Forest this season after Nuno Santo was sacked, and sadly ended up lasting not very long and was also given his marching orders. Probably should never have even taken the job. It's not for nothing that they say fools rush in you. Anderson. Well, Forest do keep it in play. Dominguez, of course, will have a key role to play as that more defensive midfielder while Anderson can try and move forward, if you will. Hutchison. Aina overlapping, but Hutchison to Dominguez. And that is Morato, who will hope to send it forward. And Williams once again, not with the best of ball control, but Cash does have to do some work in holding him off and preventing him from getting to that ball. So a nice little skirmish there between the Welsh and Polish internationals. Cash, of course, a Polish international by virtue of his mum being Polish. Sadly, neither of these two will be at the World Cup, with Wales and Poland both failing to qualify. Aston Villa will have quite a few, including the two Belgians, Tielemans and Onana. Emiliano Martinez, of course, will be anchoring Argentina's defence of their title. John McGinn will be one of the leaders of Scotland, and Victor Lindelof on the bench will be enjoying some World Cup action with Sweden later. Cash. Konsa. straight to Torres, who's got to be more decisive with his passing, and intercepted, but Tielemans does get it back. And it is forward now with McGinn, who sends it to, I think that's Rogers on the right. Yes, it is. Rogers, Cash overlapping, and Cash wins a corner off Williams. So, some really hot action right now with 15 minutes and 30 seconds having gone. And I just want to refresh these score updates and see if there's been any changes. Nope, just the 2 goals go so far. Sporting Braga leading Freiburg in the other Europa League semi-final, and Crystal Palace leading Shakhtar Donetsk in one of the Conference League semi-finals. Vallecano, Strasbourg, and Forest Villa are both goalless so far. McGinn to take the corner. Not very high, and not the best of headers either. I think that was Torres who got his head to that. Torres certainly can be a bit of a handful when it comes to heading in the box, but so too is Ezri Konsa, and so too is a certain Tyrone Mings, who might possibly come on later on in the game. It is quite possible that Villa will look to rotate for the game against Spurs this Sunday. And if Spurs do end up losing that game, they are as good as relegated. I'm pretty sure it's that. West Ham have to play Brentford at the GTEC Stadium. I would expect the Hammers to come away with a draw, with Brentford starting to fade a little bit. Back with Aston Villa. Konsa standing over the ball. What does he do? Back pass to Emi Martinez. That's fine. Emi once again standing over the ball, and he's got to be careful. It's with Konsa again. Konsa to Cash. Cash sending it forward. Not really finding anyone. Milenkovic hacking it away. But, yeah, and Cash has got to be a little bit careful because he is excellent when it comes to overlapping and being attacking, but defensively he may not be the best. Williams was hoping to find Wood, but not the best of passes, and that is easily intercepted by Tielemans. And the referee getting in the way of that, and Pinheiro graciously saying, sorry, you can start again. My apologies. And that is the way it should be. Of course, there is VAR for this game, as there is in the other semi-final, and it looks as though the comments have dried up a little bit, but I will get back to them whenever there's a break in play, I promise. Martinez sending it forward with his left foot. And that's not a bad shot there. It certainly found, I think that was Watkins, but Milenkovic had him covered. It's with Digne now, though. Watkins sending it forward to Digne. And that should be a Forest throw. It came off Digne's backside, and the freshman is not very happy, but that is the way it goes. Those are the rules. Okay, enough stuff. Aina now with the throw. A little trivia for you, and I think Hannah might know this. Aina is an Afrikaans word which means painful, but it's spelled E-I-N-A and not A-I-N-A. And some not very good defensive play there between Wood and Jesus. A backwards header there, conceding a throw-in. And this time, Digne gets his throw, so keep your calm, Lucas. And that is Buendia, and he loses the ball. Hutchison now. Buendia is always going to be a bit of a weak link, but that wasn't the best through pass. Torres was more or less in control of that, and Konsa had to be careful, though, to make sure he stayed alert. But Cash now, overlapping. And that is Watkins down the right. To Cash in the penalty area, but nobody's there to support him, and Aina can head it back. But, well, that was a pretty interesting passage of play there, because now this is why Buendia is at a bit of a disadvantage. Anyone much taller would have gotten to that ball before Ortega. Villa are actually putting Forest under a bit of pressure in their own defense. Certainly in their own penalty area. Forest's composure on the ball has not been good so far, not as expected, but I think it's fair to say that Aston Villa are a level up on Sunderland, even with Granit Xhaka in the Black Cats team. Hutchinson there, winning that battle between himself and two Villa players, but Onana there, wrapping his legs around with another fine tackle. Almost reminiscent, I would say, of Patrick Vieira at his best. And yes, I know, Arsenal fans, you're going to come at me for being blasphemous. I don't care. Crosses the penalty area, though. And Gibbs White not able to connect with that. And that should be a goal kick / free kick. But Villa, once again, as has been the case on many occasions in the Premiership, show that they can be caught napping defensively. And Gibbs there with a knee into Cash's back. Gibbs White there with that knee. But how about this for a tackle? Although he probably got Hutchinson's foot first. I think the referee wasn't really cited to that. And of course, Hutchinson did end up on the floor. Still a very balmy evening with the sun starting to set. It will probably be dark at the end of full time. That is England in the summer for you, gentlemen and ladies. And I'll get back to a few comments, of course. Okay, not right. Players resumed. McGinn there, not the best of composure with the ball. Onana rushing in, and now it's Williams. Forced back, though, by Rodgers. A back pass to Morata. And that is effectively Dominguez there, who's doubling up almost as an auxiliary centre-back. Igor Jesus, though, in the centre. Some great work from him, but some fine defending from Ezri Konsa. Danger not over, though. Gibbs White with the cross in. And is that a corner for Nottingham Forest? Well, you can tell from the reaction that it definitely is. Some desperate defending there from Aston Villa in the end. Villa trying to keep a high line, but Torres ending up playing Jesus on. Not the best of positional awareness there from the Spaniard. Gibbs White with the cross in. Hoping to find Wood, but Buendia coming to the rescue with a header. It will be Omari Hutchinson to take this corner, though. Left-footed in-swinger, just like John McGinn. I mean, not quite, but swung into the area, and easy pickings there for Emmy Martinez. A flat kick, sending it forward, hoping to find Buendia, but, well, he doesn't find Buendia. Pretty lazy header there from Morata. John McGinn now. Morgan Rogers overlapping on the right. McGinn to Digne. Whips into the penalty area, but once again, there's no one there. It is back with Buendia, but Dominguez coming to the rescue. And Williams with a rather awkward attempt at the clearance. Elliot Anderson saves his blushes by heading it back to Stefan Ortega. Expecting that PSG will play in the final, but Chelsea fans saying don't count out Bayern. I'm actually predicting that Bayern will go through because they're not going to defend as badly as they did at the Parc des Princes last night. I mean, 2 nights ago. Mark my words. Vincent Kompany will have done his homework. And Aina bullying Buendia off the ball and giving it to Jesus. Passes it back to Anderson, who should be a fixture for England in the World Cup squad. Morata to Williams, to Gibbs White. Back to Anderson. Aina. Hutchinson. Anderson. And that is sent back to Aina by Dominguez. It's with Hutchinson now on the right. Aina. Anderson now. Forest have all that space in midfield, and I think Villa just waiting for them to try to come forward, and that's a pretty poor foul, but the referee plays the advantage. Hutchinson, inside the penalty area. Can he keep it in play? Yes, he can, and in fact, he wins a corner off Digne. So it'll be a second Forest corner in reasonably quick succession. 25 minutes have just gone. It is Nottingham Forest 0, Aston Villa 0. But the action's starting to heat up a little bit, and Villa starting to be stretched defensively. And some great work there, and Digne has to be at his best to prevent that from going further into the penalty area. But Hutchinson has the corner, and it's a little bit further away, hoping to find a teammate. Safely headed away by McGinn, but only as far as Anderson. Hutchinson again now. The second chance. Bite of the cherry. Does he take a shot? Straight into Pau Torres' head. Actually, Torres' head's in the way. No danger of a concussion there. And Ortega receives that ball from Morato. He's halfway up his half, and he finds Dominguez. Back to Dominguez from Milenkovic. Anderson now with the ball. Yeah, another reminder, people, keep hitting the like button. I'm not too sure how many likes we've got yet, but I'll find out sooner or later. Hutchinson, once again, he is giving Digne a bit of a working out tonight. Finds Anderson. Well, he was never going to score from there unless he kept it down. Always rising, never going to trouble the Argentinian World Cup goalkeeper who played under Unai Emery at Arsenal in the Europa League in 2019 before Emery tragically got sacked. And of course, that season, Martinez went on to win the FA Cup, replacing Bernd Leno, who had suffered an injury against Brighton and Hove Albion. And the rest is history. Still in the Villa half, and Villa have got some work to do to try to prevent Forest from getting too much of a headway. But a very bad back pass sees Watkins receive that. He's now on his way with Digne in support. He finds Rodgers, who can take a shot. Saved again by Ortega, but Buendia retrieves it. Aina with a brilliant interception there. Not the best of crosses from Luca Digne, but the danger is not quite over yet. And Villa once again. Well, Jesus able to make amends for that mistake by retrieving that ball. Went to sleep over there, didn't really see the ball go past it. And it is Dominguez now who has the ball, cutting into the centre. Finds Gibbs-White. Hutchinson. Into the penalty area. It is with Gibbs-White. Well, he was certainly trying to chip Emi Martinez from that angle, but I think he directed it a bit too high. But some really good end-to-end stuff, and you can't necessarily say that it's bad defending from either team like it was when Bayern Munich played PSG on a Tuesday. And, at 6'5", Emi Martinez is not going to be chipped very easily. But this is, of course, the chance. Morgan Rodgers on his left foot. That was bending, and that was a fine save there from Ortega with his right hand. Again, though, a bit of a comfortable height for the keeper, but you still have to make the save. Morgan Rodgers definitely expected to be a fixture. All talk of him potentially starting for England ahead of Jude Bellingham, and that was a poor header from Aina. And Morgan Rodgers there pretty much fluffing his lines after retrieving that. It's not been easy for Rodgers. He's pretty much started every single Villa game for a very long period of time, and there's always going to be some doubt as to whether or not he might feel tired. So the biggest question, if he needs to be replaced, who comes on? The biggest likelihood is that it will be Douglas Luiz with Ross Barkley not in the squad. But, well, Igor Jesus there hoping to try to get to that through ball from Chris Wood, but Villa's defence once again alert and sharp. And again, getting into a bit of a battle with Williams and losing that battle. Lovely Scots-Welsh clash, if you will. And Forest win a free kick. So, I mean, the thing is with Rodgers is that he is still capable of some wonderful moments of quality, but I just think it's fair to say he's become a little bit lazy. The consistency has been lacking a bit. But again, this is what happens when you have players who are being overplayed by their managers week in, week out. Case in point, a certain Bukayo Saka at Arsenal. And some pretty lazy play there. Sees Tielemans steal that ball. It is with Watkins now, but a brilliant tackle there from Anderson. Watkins in pain, though, on the floor. Will play be stopped? Nope. Play continues with Hutchison finding Gibbs-White. Gibbs-White has space in the middle. He's got someone on his left, and he finds that person on his left. It is Williams. Williams is right-footed, but nobody was going to be on the end of that. And Watkins is hurt. Well, the tackles are flying in there. And, ooh! Well, Anderson did get the ball first, but the momentum pretty much took him right onto the foot there. That was studs in. Very dangerous play. Very, very dangerous. 31 minutes gone. It is Nottingham Forest 0, Aston Villa 0. Any update on the scores? Freiburg have equalised, and this actually wasn't a long time ago. It's Grifo who's equalised on 16 minutes. So it's Sporting Braga 1, Freiburg 1. I'm sure Vitor Pereira will be hoping for a Forest Braga final, another Portuguese team that he'll have to face. And you can see there that the tackles are flying in thick and fast. Still 1-0 between Donetsk and Palace and Krakow. Still goalless between Vallecano and Strasbourg. And still goalless here at the City Ground. Talk about the Michael Jackson film being all the rage. I don't know if I'll be able to see that. I don't think I have a Netflix account as of yet. And speaking of Netflix, a nice little documentary on Emi Martinez will also be shown very, very soon, in a matter of weeks. That might make for interesting viewing indeed. Forest have certainly had a lot more of the ball, a lot of the possession, but Stefan Ortega has been by far the busier keeper, making 2 pretty good saves so far. As far as Martinez is concerned, all he's had to do is catch a few high balls. Anderson sending it forward to Williams, right on the left. Williams against Cash again. Cash stops him in his tracks, but it's back with Williams. Finds Anderson, chipping it into the penalty area. Villa hoping for an offside. What a save from Emi Martinez. Well, it wasn't quite as good as the save he made at the City Ground last season from Dominguez, but this time around he stops Igor Jesus. And once again, the big risk with Villa playing that high line is that there's always going to be a chance that the offside flag will be broken there. There. Gibbs-White timing has run perfectly, but what a save. Using his big left hand to stop the ball from going over the line. That is the type of save that can win you games. And now Villa have got to calm down and regain their composure. Pau Torres, who also worked with Unai Emery at Villarreal before coming to Villa. Some possible talk of him, joining the newly promoted Coventry City team under Frank Lampard. I'm not too sure that he would want to give up potential Champions League football to join a newly promoted side. And Martinez again sending that out, but Ada happy to let that go out for a throw. Chip cross in. I think it's fair to say that, Jesus probably shouldn't have shot that too close to the keeper there. Used his left hand to stop it and fell on it to make sure they didn't cross the line. Absolutely brilliant reflexes. And it is a Villa throw. Digne doing some good work to take that off Hutchison. BBC Sport talking about that challenge being a nasty one, but he did get the ball first, so you could say that he got away with it. And of course, if Ollie Watkins were to go off injured, or because he needs a rest, just bring on Tammy Abraham, who was, of course, Aston Villa's promotion hero in that season when they came back up to the Premiership, on loan from Chelsea, I might add. And he was, of course, the match winner when Villa played Sunderland. Well, Well, it's a pretty sloppy defensive play there, but eventually Ortega reclaiming that. Rogers and Buendia in the thick of it. Yeah, when Rogers there receiving that from Watkins with some fine hold-up play. And Buendia probably needed to time his pass a little bit. This is fast and frenetic stuff. And, yep, the BBC commentators waxing lyrical about the save. Using his left arm to stop the ball and his right arm to stop it from going over the line. Stephen Warnock, ex-Aston Villa and Liverpool defender, saying that that is Emi at his very best. Probably the best save we've seen in Europe this season. And yes, David Raya fans, come at me. I don't care. Hutchison. Jesus. Hutchison again, hoping to whip it into the penalty area. Headed out. And this time Buendia hooks it to Rogers. It's with Onana. Tielemans is blocked. And this is another reason why Villa cannot afford to sleep. They've got to be sharp at all times. Watkins, McGinn, doing some good work there, and the referee sees Anderson impeding him, and that will be a free kick. Lovely little spin there from the Scotland vice-captain. And that is what you want in your midfield pattern. Yeah, I've got the updates covered, Martin. Don't worry about it. And is that going to be a Forest or a Villa throw? It's a Villa throw. And I'll tell you what, Luca Digne is making a bit of a nuisance of himself, giving Aina a bit of a tough time, but Aina is also giving it as good as he has. Onana into the penalty area. Probably not the best thrower of the ball, Luca Digne. Needs it to be a little bit harder and a bit longer. Long throws aren't necessarily his forte. That's a bit too high, but a bit of a miscommunication there between Igor Jesus and Ortega. And that results in an Aston Villa corner. If you're a goalkeeper, you've got to call for it. I'll tell you what, if Villa do score from this corner, Stefan Ortega will have a lot of words with Igor Jesus. Stefan Ortega has the name Ortega Moreno on his back. Tielemans with the corner. It's short, it's flicked on, and it's away. It's back with McGindo, who spins around. He's got to try and... he spins around again. I'm not going to move out of my way. I like it like this. And it's a goal kick. A little Kylie Minogue reference there. Also from Melbourne, just like Ange Postecoglou. And still no changes in the scores as we come up to the 39-minute mark. And Martin agrees. Good save, good save. Fine save, but I can understand that Martinez isn't exactly the cup of tea or the flavour of the month for many fans online. And that should go out for an Aston Villa throw. I think Emery will be quite happy that Villa haven't really been threatened very much apart from that chance from Igor Jesus, but the defence would certainly need to be tightened up and the midfield does need to be a little bit stronger. So Villa do have a lot more options off the bench than Forest do. Forest going in with a mix of first-team squaddies and youth players. Dominguez. That's kept in play, but it is back with Villa. Onana. Sending it across to Luca Digne on the left. He's got space because Aina's backed off him. Pau Torres. Back to Konsa with Wood trying to snap. And that pressing, which I was expecting from the Forest front four tonight, hasn't quite materialised. We've just ticked 40 minutes. Still 0-0 at the City ground. I am keeping tabs, of course, on the scores of the other games, and I might actually find out what's going on in the Crystal Palace game, and if we're still playing when it's half-time here, I could even switch to the Palace game. But great play from Watkins. Sadly, it was 1 against 4 or 5. He was never going to win that battle. Gibbs White against Cash. Cash winning that battle. Winning a free kick. Apparently, I can't watch updates of the Palace the next game due to some reasons, but I'll set that right. John McGinn now standing over the free kick. 4 minutes to go until half-time, and you think there'd be about 2 minutes of stoppages added on at the end of this. And that is into the penalty area, but not quite far enough. It is back with Tielemans, though, who finds Digne. Digne hoping to whip it in. Once again, finding a Forest defender. It's like the crosses are coming in, but there's no one there to meet them, and that has been Villa's biggest problem so far. Hutchison with a brilliant jinking run, and, well, according to Emi Buendia, he got the ball first, but with Hutchison sent tumbling, Pinheiro thought, sorry, there has to be a free kick, I'm afraid. Yeah, Buendia did get the ball first, but yeah, not the best decision that from the Portuguese referees. 3 minutes to go until the end of the first half. Normal time. There will be stoppages, of course. And of course, no changes in the scores in the other games. They are being updated. Refreshed, courtesy of BBC Sport. Hutchison. And that is Williams who sends it quite long. And that is in the penalty area. A chance for Milenkovic to shoot, and he goes high and ugly. And well, the linesman's flag has been raised. I think there might have been an offside in the build-up there. Yep. At least 2 or 3 players straying offside. Dominguez with the header back in. Chested down by Aina, but Milenkovic was never going to hit the target shooting. We are at 43 minutes. It is still Nottingham Forest 0, Aston Villa 0. And Emi Martinez with the save of the half. Now has to try to create an attack with a long, long kick. He just has all the all-round skills, and that's why I rate him higher than a certain glorified system player who only knows how to play one way. He's just a good shot stopper. Nothing more. Watkins possibly could have gotten onto that, but wasn't in his range. Back with Ortega. Morata. Back to Ortega with Watkins snapping at their heels. Headed down by Buendia, but Jesus there with some pretty innovative defending. And Dominguez passing it back to Ortega. Morata laying it off to Anderson. Dominguez back to Morata. Anderson. But some poor play there from Forest. They do win the ball back, but Villa there, you could see, and that's a rather nasty off-the-ball incident there from, I think that was Watkins, wasn't it? Yeah, clearly no love lost between the two after that ugly tackle from Anderson. Anderson did win the ball, but Watkins wasn't happy with the studs being, a rather cynical little bump there. Nothing really in it. Certainly not worthy of a yellow card, so well done to the referee for showing some good sense. And we are in the last 10 seconds of normal time, and we will find out how many minutes are going to be added for stoppages. And if a goal is to be scored in stoppage time, that would be a huge, huge, huge boost for the team in question. And we've got our answer. There is going to be no stoppage time. So half-time in this game in question. A very interesting half, of course, rather cagey, you could say. Some decent chances for both teams. Forest having the better of the chances, but Villa also forcing Ortega into a couple of important saves. And neither team really willing to give much away at this point, but you just think that the action will start to heat up in the second half. So at half-time, from the City Ground, it is Nottingham Forest 0, Aston Villa 0. And I'm now going to go through the other games, which are at the moment being played right now. I can tell you that we're into injury time between Donetsk and Crystal Palace right now. It is still 1-0 with Ismail Assar's goal proving to be the difference. Well, I'm just going to be back in a few minutes. Well, it seems to be a bit of a problem with my stupid subscriber service. I mean, I made sure I paid for the channel as part of the package, but for some reason, you know, it's not being reflected. I will, of course, have to depend on BBC Sport for the updates, and I can tell you that we are at half-time in Krakow with Crystal Palace leading by a goal to nil. I will refresh the scores. Surprisingly, they're still playing in Braga with Braga and Freiburg tied. Nope, it's just gone to half-time. So it's 1-1 between Braga and Freiburg, also deadlocked. And it's also goalless between Vallecano and Strasbourg. So Gary O'Neill hoping to see his team through to the European final where he could play Crystal Palace from the looks of it. And it would certainly be wonderful for him to prove that he can do it on a continental level after not quite being able to get it together in the Premiership. Certainly saved Bournemouth and Wolves from relegation, but was sacked by Bournemouth at the end of that season, replaced by Areola, and with Wolves. Didn't start the next season well and was replaced by a certain Vitor Pereira, who himself got fired the following season and is now at Nottingham Forest. Martin said, Hanno, a rather dull game so far. I certainly see where you're coming from, Deadwood. And of course, basically Chelsea fan and Nem's talking about the Michael Jackson film. And as I said, I do believe Bayern will make the final. PSG have beaten Arsenal before, and if they do end up playing the final, I wouldn't put it past them to win, but I think Bayern will certainly do their homework at the Allianz and make sure they defend a bit more tighter. Because they know that they cannot allow the likes of Kvaratskhelia, Doué, Dembele and company to run roughshod over them. Just banter, Chelsea fan, don't worry about it. And let's see what the... huge update, actually. There was actually a penalty saved in the Braga-Freiburg game. The Freiburg starting goalkeeper, Noah Atabolu, diving full stretch to tip Rodrigo Salazar penalty around the post. Gustav Lagerbielke, who I believe was on the books at a Scottish Premier League club, I think it might have been Celtic, I don't remember, or was it Rangers? He was actually dragged to the ground at a corner by Freiburg defender Philipp Lienhardt. Not exactly a Lionheart there. Anthony Taylor, the referee for that game, he was told to check the pitch side monitor and he awarded the penalty kick. So some action going on there in Portugal. Yeah, a lot of people not very happy with the Anderson tackle on Watkins. Said it should have been a straight red for Anderson there, studs up, and, retroactively there might be some punishment. I'm not too sure. Saying Anderson should have been sent off. Omari Hutchinson completing 6 of his 9 dribbles in the first half. Certainly proving to be quite important down that right-hand side. Anderson himself winning possession 6 times in that first half. So you can see that Forest have done quite well in terms of winning the midfield battle. Aston Villa probably hoping to hit the tree men on the counter. Certainly a very cagey, quite energetic first half. But we haven't really seen Forest be able to dominate Villa's defence with their high press the way they did against Sunderland. So Watkins is apparently being targeted, so it could very well be that Emery might decide, if he's smart, to bring Watkins off with about 15 or 20 minutes to go and bring on Tammy Abraham. Other sub-options, Douglas Luiz to maybe come on for Morgan Rogers later on, or Emi Buendia. I would love to see Harvey Elliott coming on for Emi Buendia. The only problem is that poor fellow has been doing so much work in training, but not had the game time to show. And yes, Lagerbielke is also a teammate of Victor Lindelof with Sweden. And he was, in fact, at Celtic. So, a rather dull game and a rather dull comment section with no real comments to show for it. Hanno dropping in a little bit later. And of course, it does look as though Crystal Palace are favourites to reach the final. Another trophy for Oliver Glasner. Nice farewell gift from him as he leaves the club at the end of the season. The only question is, if he does get Crystal Palace into the Europa League, I'm sure the club will want to look for a quality manager to replace him. Bournemouth have already gotten a quality replacement for Andoni Iraola in the form of Marco Rosa, who managed both Borussia Dortmund and Red Bull Leipzig back in the day. And of course, confirmation that all semi-final times are at half-time right now. 3 goals, 3 ties so far, and 1 team 1-0 up. So I want to say as well, thank you to Hanno for agreeing to let me do this stream, because of course it is a more Premiership semi-final and the winner will make it an English finalist in the Europa League. And obviously the Chelsea supporters are going to have some vested interests in Villa going on to win the Europa League in the hope that they may get a backdoor into the Champions League, as mentioned earlier on. Oh, we've got Jordan Hyman in the building. Big up to you, son. Thank you for stopping by. And not too sure what you've got to think of the European action. Obviously, the headline clash was PSG against Bayern on Tuesday, followed by Atletico Madrid against my Arsenal team last night. And I was saying to Hanno yesterday that while it is wonderful to see so much attacking play, you also want to have a balance in good defensive play. And I get that sometimes if you want to keep that fluid attacking transition, you've got to play a bit of a high line. But, you know, if that high line is pierced all too often, you know, you're asking for trouble. And I also find it quite hypocritical when people talk about this sort of play being done by the bigger teams and people, you know, going gaga over it. But when Ange Postecoglou and other team managers try to introduce that, they get ridiculed, saying there's no place for that in the Premiership. Of course, Postecoglou did win the Europa League, but he obviously had to play a little bit more defensive when it came to knockout football and European football, because one mistake and you're out of the competition. Yeah, agreed that the PSG Bayern game was the best game. Less said about the Atletico Arsenal game, the better. A lot more tactical, so to speak. I remember watching that game and then hopping on and off Hanno's channel last night, and basically saying that, yes, it wasn't quite as, you know, fluid and attacking as the PSG Bayern game was. It was more of a game of chess, but that's what you get when you have two defensive managers playing against each other. And I think Arsenal can be quite lucky not to have conceded more than the 1 goal. Just 2 penalties in that entire match. And that tackle by Hanko on Ebery Eze, that was not a penalty. I'm sorry. There was hardly anywhere near enough contact for that to be given a penalty, although clearly a friend of mine doesn't agree. Shout out to Chris Mossing from Moss Sports World, who obviously sent me a graphic and replied to what I said by saying, and I quote, "Rubbish. They call those tackles a penalty a million times. You missed the ball and hit the player in the box. He says there was no dive. And he's asking about Ben White's handball too. Yes, Ben White's was a handball, just like Martin Odegaard's was a handball when Arsenal played against Liverpool at Anfield a few seasons ago. And I can tell you now that we are back at the City ground. And the second half, of course, is about to start. I think there are any changes to report, and it's just as well that Emi Martinez has been able to stay fit rather than end up being withdrawn from this game. Obviously, we're going to hope to see a lot more fluid attacking football from both teams, and I'm afraid we're not going to be able to see much action from the Shakhtar Donetsk Crystal Palace game. I mean, I paid for the channel. It's ridiculous. A little bit of a joke in the Oris Talks football group chat. Peppa Pig has torn his was it an ACL or hamstring just 24 hours after signing for Tottenham. Ridiculous. Anyway, we are back underway. Nottingham Forest kick off. A pass back to Stefan Ortega, who sends it long. And some head tennis going on over there. And well, it's Forest to win a free kick, a rather needless foul there from Morgan Rogers. And this is always going to be a bit of a risk with Morgan. He does have the tendency to get a little bit, petulant at times. Yeah, sort of an elbow there into the upper chest of Milenkovic, or Dominguez, I should say. And Villa have a free kick in the potentially dangerous area with Elliot Anderson taking it. He whips it into the penalty area, finds Milenkovic, but it's a high looping header, catching practice for the two-time Yashin Award winner, Emi Martinez. Rolls it out to Ezri Konsa. Can Villa start something now? I'm not too sure that Unai Emery will be happy with the draw at this game, a repeat of the result in the Premier League. He will want a goal to take back to Villa Park, and clearly you can see him start to get agitated now, and Villa have got their subs on the bench, hoping to see some action. Won't be long before some of them start to warm up. Matthew Cash with the throw, hoping to send it long, and that doesn't find anyone. But Villa do win the ball back. It's with Onana. Buendia doing some good work to win the ball back and pass it to Onana in the first place. And back with Martinez, sending it long, hoping to find a teammate, and some brilliant play there from Watkins means that he retrieves the ball, but Morato there holding him off, and I think that should be a Nottingham Forest throw, and it is. A nice turnaround there to make sure that he spun the defender around, but the defender did have the last laugh. Williams with a throw. It's back with Onana, who's now having to do some defensive work. Pau Torres passing it back to Martinez. Konsa. Onana, who's now dropped back very, very deep. And being forced into the runaround there by Gibbs-White. That's always the danger. But some wonderful connecting play there between Rodgers and McGinn. It's back with Onana. And I think that's Tielemans who sends it forward, hoping to find Watkins. And it is with Watkins. This Watkins-Milenkovic battle is Milenkovic once again pretty much falling him off. Anderson sending it forward. Finds Gibbs-White on the left. Back with Gibbs-White from Anderson. Gibbs-White passes it across the field to Aina, who can now run. Aina chips it into the penalty area, but again, crosses everywhere, and not a head with which to connect. Buendia receiving it from Tielemans. And that is Watkins on the left. Certainly a lot more to his game than other strikers, Watkins. Onana doesn't go for a shot. Instead he passes it to Rodgers. Does Rodgers keep it in play? He does, but again, there's no one in the penalty area. You need to have some people in the penalty area who are ready to receive that sort of stuff. And I think this is where you probably need a good old-fashioned number 9 who will get himself in and among the defenders. And this is another reason why, when it comes to playing against teams like Forest who have pretty tall defenders, a guy like Watkins, a lone striker, may not really work. If you were to have him playing as part of a front two with someone like a Tammy Abraham, that could work. But, invariably, it would have to be that Rodgers doubles up as a sort of a false striker there. But Hutchinson is on the floor, but the referee says play on. And play is, in fact, stopped with Hutchinson in a little bit of agony. Hutchinson against Digne. Digne sending him to the floor. And Buendia also in amongst the skirmish. And a huge update from Krakow. I believe Shakhtar Donetsk have, in fact, equalized. Ocheretko on 47 minutes has tied things up for the Ukrainians against Palace in Krakow. So all to play for here. Still 1-1 between Braga and Freiburg. And the sun has, in fact, gone down in Nottingham. And we have ticked over 50 minutes. It is still Nottingham Forest 0, Aston Villa 0. Just going to refresh these scores. And, yep, still goalless as well in Spain between Vallecano and Strasbourg. So lots, in fact, to play for. Certainly some pain in his shoulder, but Hutchinson is shaking it off. And Forest can continue to play. Anderson now finds Williams on the left, but McGinn shuts him off. And that will be a Forest. Neco Williams with a short throw to Gibbs-White. Gibbs-White manoeuvres his way past Matthew Cash, but Luca Digne there with a rescuing header after that cross was chipped in the penalty area. The danger's not gone, though, for Villa. It's with Dominguez sending it forward to Hutchinson after some fine interplay. But the shot from Hutchinson was not the best. A P-roller, really, straight to Martinez. And once again, now we're seeing the pressure from Forest, and that was good play there, which ended up winning a free kick. Tielemans over there wondering why that free kick was given against him. And now you see the effects of that press starting to come in. And it looks as though Villa are going to have to start, not just tightening up at the back, but beefing themselves up. Quickly taken free kick and an important defensive header there from Amadou Onana, and that will be a Forest corner. So a fine spell here from Nottingham Forest, and that was heading towards Chris Wood. I think the New Zealander was hoping for a penalty, but not really going to get. And apparently Hutchinson still in some discomfort over his shoulder. Martinez just telling his defence to leave some room. It's going to be the right-footed Neco Williams to try to swing this corner in. He does have a more than decent right foot. That is long and looping. And another Forest corner. Morgan Rodgers heading that behind. And Villa are making their first change. It looks as though Lamare Bojada will be coming on. I'm not too sure who he's replacing. It can't be. If it's Amadou Onana, then I think it's fair to say that Villa might be asking for trouble. But Hutchinson with the left-footed in-swinger. Short, headed away. Only as far as Elliot Anderson, who's happy to let the ball go out for a throw, despite Buendia's best efforts to stop it. Anderson to Aina, back to Anderson. Anderson hoping to send it into the penalty area again. And nobody on the end of that. And does that go out for an Aston Villa throw? Yes, it does. Villa have now got to start maintaining their composure. The only question is, does Bojade come on at... Well, it looks as though Amadou Onana's walking a little bit gingerly and he might be replaced. But it's a big risk, this, taking off Onana, who has literally been at the centre of play. And I think it's fair to say that when he made that header, he started to win some pain a little bit. So it might make sense to just bring him off, give him a rest for Spurs on Sunday. A win for Villa, again on Sunday, should secure their position in the top 4-5, more or less. And all but relegate Tottenham Hotspur. Confirmation of the substitution. Number 24 off, number 26 on. Lamade Bacharda replacing Amadou Onana. And so he will slot in alongside Yuri Tillmans. And this is worrying because Bacharda actually started against Fulham and was bullied by the Fulham midfield. So I'm not too sure how he's going to play tonight. But and you see here right now, Forest just have so much more in terms of power and progression. I mean, aggression, I should say. But Villa do have the ball. Tielemans passing it back to Konsa. Tielemans. Bacharda with his first touch, hoping to find it. And that is the biggest problem with Bacharda. He's a little bit, you have to say that he's a bit rusty right now. Anderson. Gibbs-White. And some pretty poor ball control there from Neco Williams, and Villa end up snuffing out the danger. 55 minutes gone. It is still Forest 0, Villa 0. Any changes in the scores in the other games? No, not as of yet. You will, of course, be updated in due course. Bacharda trying to get stuck in. Bacharda wins the ball. Pass it to Tielemans. Forest is starting to show some aggression right now, and that's what Vitor Pereira would have wanted. But Rodgers now, up against Gibbs-White. And I'm sorry, Morgan, you're not going to win a foul like that. Gibbs-White sending it forward. And, well, I'll tell you what, nerves of ice. Martinez sees Wood running at him and chips that pass beyond him and finds his teammate. Tielemans to McGinn. Finds Rodgers in the penalty area. Chipped in! Ooh, what a save from Ortega. And that should probably be a corner, but Ortega coming to Forest rescue once again. I'm not too sure that Watkins was expecting the ball to come at him, and Ortega certainly wasn't expecting the shot. Excellent reflexes there. Forest defence playing Watkins onside, and I think you've got to say that Watkins just wasn't in control. He had to take a first-time shot with Aina snapping at his heels, but this is where sometimes, Ollie, you've got to use your left. Tielemans just consoling. It is a Villa corner. Super John McGinn, left-footed in-swinger. Finds a tee, hoping to find the teammate, but he was heading out. Buendia passing it to McGinn now, though. And McGinn doesn't keep it in play, though. And Elliot Anderson trying to whip up the crowd. And probably no substitutions as of yet either. I mean, we've had one already, but Forest do look a bit fresher and more aggressive, and they haven't really felt the need to bring anyone on. I'm not too sure that both teams would be happy with a draw or a tie so far. Whoever scores will definitely have the advantage going into the second leg at Villa Park. Ortega sending it long. And that is with Bacharda, who has to be a little bit stronger. And not the best of headers there from McGinn, but brilliant work to barge through Anderson and Williams and win that ball on the right. Short pass there to that Buendia, but Buendia slips. And again, this is why Emi Buendia is always going to be a risk. He does have good work rate. He does dribble well with the ball. He does have some good passing ability. But if you put him up against a really big defender, 9 times out of 10, he's going to lose that battle. Hutchinson there trying to win a battle between himself and the Villa defence and losing. And now Villa can progress with the ball. Luca Digne. It is Watkins on the left. Great work from Watkins, but not the best of ball control. And Pinheiro, no foul there. So Digne can cross it in. Well, it wasn't so much a cross as more of a pass. I'm not too sure what's going on there. Pereira saying that there should be a free kick awarded. And Ayler basically following through on that tackle, with his left foot going into Digne's backside. And Vitor Pereira is not happy with the decision made by his fellow Portuguese. You never know, Martin. We'll see what happens. I mean, it could very well be that, one goal could decide this, or both teams will be happy with the draw. It was, of course, 1-1 in the Premiership in this corresponding fixture, but Villa did beat Forest 3-1 at Villa Park. Tielemans with the free kick. And that is headed back, and, Ortega had to do some work there. And Konsa is not happy with the decision. I think the referee there pointing to a foul on the keeper. Well, Konsa's elbow coming into Ortega's face. You can't say that was deliberate, but it was definitely dangerous. And the Aston Villa vice-captain is not a happy chappy. So while this is Villa's strongest 11, and Martin actually has an update for us, Crystal Palace have retaken the lead. Thank you very much indeed, mate. And I'll find out who the goal scorer is for you. Daichi Kamada on 58 minutes. And Williams sends that long, but along that touchline, that was never going to find Igor Jesus. By the way, Chelsea fan, thank you for staying in the chat. I think it's fair to say that people have gotten bored of my voice, which is why we don't have too many more comments. But we have had a newcomer coming in, so I'm grateful for that. Begin with the header, but that is sent all the way forward and all the way out. And clearly, Pereira's not quite happy because he knows that with his team being sharper and more aggressive, they've got to do a lot more with the ball. Villa have so far, aside from one or two occasions, looked quite comfortable. That save by Martinez from Jesus in the first half was, we've got to say, as good as it got. But Buendia now, all alone in the middle, and yet Hutchison just snatches it off in front of it. Back pass to Ortega, who sends it just barely beyond the halfway line, and Villa should be able to get it back, and they do. McGinn receiving the ball from Konsa, passing it to Torres. Torres sending it forward, hoping to find Morgan Rogers, and he does. But after some uncomfortable bounces on Rogers' shoulder, Williams gets the ball, and that is sent forward by Morato, but just above the head of Chris Wood. Just above the jump of Chris Wood, it must be said. Konsa, the ex-Forest defender Cash. Bojada sending it forward. Chris passing between Rogers and Buendia. And I'm not too sure what Watkins was trying to do, but that's the defence coming in the way. So I would like to see Emery bringing on someone like a Douglas Luiz for either of Buendia or Rogers, who just hasn't quite been able to stand his mark on the game tonight. And I think I can speak for a large number of Aston Villa fans and other fans when I say that if I don't see Leon Bailey playing, it'll be too soon. Williams sending it forward. Anderson intercepted by Cash, but he can't keep it in play, and that will be a Forest. Forest legend Stuart Pearce doing some commentary duty. All of 78 caps for England too. Won quite a few pieces of silverware at Nottingham Forest, but that was, of course, near the end of Brian Clough's tenure. Forest do win a corner. We have the former Nottingham Forest youth player who also played at the City Ground for 4 years before joining Aston Villa in 2020. And there has been a goal in Spain, Rayo Vallecano taking the lead. Alemel on 54 minutes, putting Vallecano 1-0 up. Short corner from Williams to Anderson. Anderson sending it into the penalty area. Once again, Martinez saying, that's mine. That's mine, and claiming it. Still 1-1 between Braga and Freiburg, and I wonder if Braga will rue that missed penalty in the first half. That saved penalty, it must be said. Don't sleep on Freiburg either, mind you. They've been scoring some goals for fun in the earlier rounds and dismantled Celta Vigo, who knocked out Olympique Lyonnais, who had topped the league group phase. And Cash overlapping. Cash against Morato. Who wins? Into the penalty area, but the defence comes up trumps. Important saving tackle there. And Bocardi again caught in 2 lines, and somehow Rogers bails him out. Villa have got to be a little bit sharper in games like this. And, you know, Bocardi is a hard worker, but he was bullied at Craven Cottage, and I'm not too sure he's been able to really stamp his mark. Maybe bring on Douglas Luiz to add a little beef to proceedings. Thielman sending it forward to Digne. And takes it away from Hutchison, passing it back to Torres. Thielman sending it forward, and Buendia not able to really connect with that. And you can see Emery starting to grit his teeth. He's not very happy with the way Aston Villa's midfield is, you know, just looking a little bit off the pace. Needs to freshen it up a bit. Igor Jesus there with some fine play. Muscling off 2 midfielders, finding Gibbs-White. Into the penalty area, but once again, nobody on the end of that, and that should be a goal kick. And Pinheiro indicating that the ball had in fact gone out of play, despite Hutchison's protests. His shoulder seems to have recovered quite well there. I'll tell you what, we're going to see a better angle here. I'll tell you what, I don't think that went out of play. And there is, in fact, a penalty check because Digne did raise his hands. So some pretty stupid play there from Digne, it has to be said. The ball didn't go out of play. And you know what? I can see this being potentially given. Hits Digne on his right hand. Hutchison and Dominguez calling for a handball. This could very well be a penalty. A really stupid piece of defending there. And I think Pinheiro will be going to the VAR monitor as soon as possible. We are halfway through the second half as we speak. And Forest, if they get this penalty awarded, they have an opportunity to take a priceless lead. But this is really, really, really needless play there. And you've got to say full credit to Omari Hutchison for showing endeavour, keeping that ball in play. Digne will be sweating. Digne will be sweating. I'm sorry, Hanno, but listen, Digne's hand was raised. The ball was in play. Unnatural position, I'm pretty sure that will be called a penalty. We've already had 1 penalty saved tonight in the Freiburg-Braga game. If this penalty gets awarded, I know Emi Martinez has an excellent record with penalties, but I can see Gibbs-White scoring from the spot. And there's a long delay. And yes, he's going to the monitor. This is going to be a penalty. I am going to be prepared to change the banner just in case, because you can see there from that angle the ball did not completely cross the line, and so that was really stupid, dozy play there from Digne to raise his hands like that. You do not raise your hands, and the referee has in fact awarded a penalty, so Nottingham Forest have a huge opportunity to take a priceless and, you must say, very well-deserved lead in the semi-final first leg. Emery trying to encourage calm, but Luca Digne will know that he has committed an absolutely ugly mistake. You do not raise your hands like that. There was no need for him to do that. And credit to Omari Hutchison, former Chelsea boy, of course, Hannah. And it looks as though it will be the captain, Gibbs White, to take it, their usual penalty taker. No, it is in fact the New Zealander, Chris Wood. So, New Zealand against Argentina of sorts. We're going to see who comes up trumps. New Zealand are also going to be at the World Cup. Will they play Argentina? I don't know. We'll see what happens here. Wood against Martinez. And that is as perfect a penalty as you could ever get. Martinez guessed the right way, but he was never, ever going to save that penalty. And so Nottingham Forest have taken a well-deserved lead in this first leg semi-final of the semi-final. Aston Villa, Unai Emery. What are you made of? And that is, again, a proper penalty. Martinez, easily the best goalkeeper in the world when it comes to saving penalties, just above him. He was never going to reach that. And Forest have a one-goal lead. It's tough on Emi Martinez. Once again, I wonder if, like 2 seasons ago, he makes a brilliant save and still ends up on the losing side. Luca Digne should be feeling sick as a parrot. If I were Emery, I'd say, that's it, Lucas. Off you come. Time to bring on Ian Matson, maybe. Well, Villa now got some work to do. I think it's fair to say that at this point, if they get an equaliser, they're going to take it and run. Digne, let's see if he can make amends for his error. Buendia, twisting and turning, finding McGinn, but once again some aggressive Forest defending, making sure they are onto the Villa midfield in the flash, and they retrieve the ball brilliantly. But Gibbs White giving it away, McGinn getting it back. Bocada, McGinn. Tielemans. Bocada. Matthew Cash. And so with less than 20 minutes to go, this is the time for Unai Emery to bring on some substitutes. Tielemans to Bocada. Sending it forward, but does Cash keep it in play? Not the best ball there from McGinn, and that will be a goal kick. And that is a fine penalty. Fine penalty, in every sense of the word. Needless handball from DA, that. Any updates in the other games? As I've told you, Vallecano are ahead, Palace are ahead, still 1-1 between Braga and Freiburg. Potential injury here for Ola Aina, who may be forced to. I don't know if he is going to be coming off. He might be. He's walking a bit gingerly right now. little off the ball incident there. And it will, in fact, be the youngster Zach Abbott who will be coming on instead of the club captain Ryan Yates. Yep. So Forest make their first substitution, a little injury precaution there. I'm pretty sure that Aina will have a role to play in the second leg at Villa Park next week. Yeah, the BBC Sport commentary team are absolutely ripping Digne a new one for that decision to raise his arms. Not the best of goal kicks, and McGinn. But then this is where you see how Forest is so good. They're basically doubling, tripling, quadrupling up on the Villa players. But it does come at a cost, because once Villa do find the ball, they can pass it to a player with plenty of space. And it's headed towards goal by Rodgers, but off target. So Digne there hoping to make amends with a fine cross. It was, of course, his cross that led to Tammy Abraham's breathlessly late winner for Villa against Sunderland last time around. Could very well be that Emery might decide to boost the midfield by having Ian Matson coming on the left wing. That could be an option too. Neco Williams. High, long rugby-style kick, sending it forward. I know they do love rugby in Wales, but never would expect that experience to get that influence to go that deep. Matthew Cash with the long throw. And this is, of course, Zach Abbott's 7th appearance in the Europa League. So clearly, this is seen as not much of a priority, a chance for youngsters to play. But Rodgers doing well to evade the defence. And I think Forest are claiming a foul. And they're getting a foul. I'm not too sure what Rodgers did there, but we'll find out sooner or later. You can see there are 3 people on him, and as you can see, he does clip Neco Williams in. Williams gets the ball first, and yeah, I think Villa now have got to make some more substitutions. Yeah, and some more people in the chat ripping into Digne for that, saying, "You raise your hands that high, you ask for trouble." And I did call it. It looks as though Villa are going to bring on Ian Matson. Douglas Luiz also coming on at the stadium where he did play earlier this season. Sort of coming back to a spiritual home. Hopefully Matson and Luiz can tilt the balance a little bit. We'll see if Digne is asked to come off, because he does have a good cross, but again, you cannot raise your hands that high in the penalty area. That is just stupidity. And we have a booking for Yuri Tillemans here. A foul against Elliot Anderson. And of course, it's now a triple substitution. So off go Luca Digne and John McGinn. On comes Douglas Luiz. I think Ian Matson will be slotting into left back. Jadon Sancho coming on for the Villa captain. And Emi Buendia also coming off. I called it. Matson on for Buendia. Sancho replacing McGinn. Sancho, another former Chelsea player who was a part of their Conference League winning squad, I should say, last season. Wasn't picked to play for them in the Club World Cup with his loan period having expired. Now he's got some work to do. A fine pass there from Morato, but just got there ahead of the ball and couldn't quite control it. And now Forest are in the ascendancy, and you just feel that if they get more of the ascendancy, they could score a second. Anderson. And, well, Anderson wants a corner, but instead it's a goal kick to Aston Villa. And he's not very happy about that. Marginal there. I mean, you know, Cash was probably lucky that the ball had just crossed the line before he got his foot to it. Martinez. Conser. Cash. And now you see Forest starting to press. They want that second goal. They want to ram home the advantage. Conser showing some composure. And Martinez having to poof that out, hoping to find Rodgers. And you see there Milenkovic almost manhandling. I think that was Watkins there, but Rodgers away with the ball, but once again double teamed. And this time he does win a free kick as we tick on to 80 minutes. It is still Nottingham Forest 1, Aston Villa 0. I think Villa are going to be happy with an equaliser. Let them take that back to Villa Park. And this time Rodgers wins a foul. And one thing about Douglas Luiz coming on against his all too recently former club is that he does take a good free kick into the penalty area, doesn't find the teammate, headed away. But as far as Maatsen, who receives the ball from Bohard, actually. And Maatsen now can also cut right in and definitely cause a problem. Into the penalty area is Sancho, but the defence holds firm and hacks it away. Will that be kept in play, though? No. Aston Villa throw. 9 minutes to go. And stoppages will be added. I think there will probably be at least 5 minutes for the VAR decision. Elsewhere, Crystal Palace still 2-1 up against Shakhtar Donetsk. Vallecano 1-0 up against Strasbourg. Still all square at 1-1 between Braga and Freiburg. And Forest are leading Aston Villa 1-0. And I think Forest are also preparing for a sub themselves. I think they might be bringing on their club captain, Ryan Yates. Torres receiving the ball from Conser. Maatsen. Maatsen being forced back from the looks of it. Conser with the captain's armband. Sending it to Cash, who sends it forward. And he does find Will Rodgers, but at the unfortunate moment, he slips. Tielemans, though, trying to shepherd Williams, but to no avail. Abbott to Hutchison. Igor Jesus. Back to Milenkovic. Sent forward by Morato, and a brilliant little dummy there from Gibbs White. He does keep it in play with a back heel. This is brilliant stuff. The two England teammates combining there. Gibbs White receiving it from Anderson. And this is really a potent combination now on the left, especially, and you see Gibbs White now into the penalty area. Headed off by Conser, but it's still with Hutchison. And a rather weak left-footed shot right down Emi Martinez's throat. Now Torres. And that is not a good pass from Torres. Easily intercepted. Anderson now. To Gibbs White. Telling him to look to Williams on the left. And he finds Williams on the left. Williams against Cash. Forest with the bit between their teeth. Anderson. Anderson against Cash. Lays it off to Williams. Gibbs White. Williams into the penalty area, left-footed. And that is fairly well dealt with by Conser, and Douglas Luiz now has to move the ball away. A risky pass back there to Rodgers, but was kept in control. Torres now with a better pass than last time to Maatsen, but Maatsen being literally almost impeded there by Dominguez, and Pinheiro says, sorry, Nico, I'm not going to let you get away. Bojada now. Konsa. Matthew Cash. Konsa. And still no more comments. I think people have gotten so bored of me, but or maybe are you listening really intently to me? I'm not too sure. Konsa to Cash, and Gibbs White is now literally snapping at his heels. So this has definitely been a much better second half for Nottingham Forest, not just for the lead, but also how they've shown more intent and more aggression. And Aston Villa are now caught in two minds. Do they try to contain and just be happy with a narrow defeat? Do they go for an equaliser? Because with exactly 5 minutes of normal time left plus stoppages, I do not see them winning this game. And I think, Chelsea fans said it perfectly. The 2-1 Aston Villa, it looks likely not to happen. You got the Forest goal right, but not the 2 Aston Villa ones in return. Although Aston Villa do have a knack of scoring some late goals, especially in Europa League action. This is, of course, the third semi-final that the Villa have managed to reach under Unai Emery. The first time around, it was the Conference League semi-final in 2024, FA Cup semi-finalists in 2025, and now Europa League semi-finalists this year. Last year, they were also Champions League quarter-finalists and gave PSG a brilliant game at Villa Park, only just losing out to the eventual wins. Morgan Rogers now. Lamade Bojada. Rogers. Bojada. Dougie Luiz. Certainly has some good touches, but this Villa side right now is crying out for Ross Barkley. Really. If you're not going to play Harvey Elliott, do not include him in the squad. Into the penalty area, but that is easily hacked away. But it's still with Cash. Bojada now. Luiz back to Bojada. It's with Maatsen. And that is Sancho on the left. Sancho finding Bojada. Bojada not able to make much headway with that, and that was not very well controlled. And Forest now have a chance to hit on the counter if they can find the through pass. But Igor Jesus forced back. And the defence can also ride to the rescue. Coming up to 87 minutes of the game, and stoppages will be awarded. Morato now. And Forest at the moment just enjoying themselves, really, with the ball. And they know that they've got the advantage to take to Villa Park. But having said that, Villa Park is Aston Villa's fortress, especially in Europe. Haven't lost a game at home in the Europa League. Have been beaten quite a few times in the Premiership, including quite recently against the likes of Everton and Brentford, two potentially damaging defeats, which threw a spanner in their hopes of challenging for the title, but they should qualify for the Champions League by the league position. But they want some silverware as we come up to 88 minutes. It is still Nottingham Forest 0, Aston Villa 0. Gibbs White, Morato, Gibbs White, and at this moment, Forest are just controlling the tempo of the game. And again, Bojada just showing that he's just not strong enough. Hutchinson now. A little bit like a dreadful mistake they made last season by axing Daniel Marlin from the Champions League squad. Although that probably couldn't have been helped, this mistake could easily be rectified. And of course, Barkley did play a few Europa League group stage games, but that was because Tyrone Mings had gotten injured. So, again, if you're not going to play either Tyrone Mings or Harvey Elliott, you've got to pick Ross Barkley in the squad. But a chance here for Tielemans. And he wasn't able to control that shot. And we are into the last bit of normal time. And I think that pretty much sums up Villa's night. All huffing and puffing and just not able to blow the house down. Didn't have a proper connection with that shot, and I'd like to think that even if he had connected with it, Ortega would have had it covered. And that is Igor Jesus' final action for the night. He will be replaced by the club captain, Ryan Yates. This is, of course, Forest's last European game this season. If they do qualify for the final, you would fancy them to win it. But again, all will depend on how things are transpiring. And a huge update, Crystal Palace have increased their lead to 3-1 on the night. Strand Larsen with a goal on 84 minutes. I think Martin might have mentioned that in the chat. Yes, he has. I'm sorry I missed it. But I think it's fair to say you might be having one eye on the action over there in Krakow. But thank you very much indeed. And I called it. There are 5 minutes of time added on. So the best that Aston Villa can hope for is a breathlessly late equaliser. There is no way they're going to win this game. And Unai Emery has a lot of work to do. It has to be said. Murato. Milenkovic. Murato back to Ortega. And it's with Murato now, who sends it forward, hoping to find a teammate, but well controlled by Ezri Konsa. And now with 4 minutes to go, the best part of 4 minutes to go, what can Aston Villa do? Pau Torres. Matthew Cash. Morgan Rogers, who will now have effectively played the whole 90 minutes and will be tired. If he starts against Spurs, he could be in trouble, but Villa do have a corner. Matthew Cash winning it off Neco Williams. If you see Twitter, there's been a lot of friendly exchanges between Forest and Villa supporters, a lot of mutual respect between the two of them, wishing each other good luck. And that'll be another corner. Zach Abbott tidying things up, so to speak. So another outswinging corner from Yuri Tielemans, hoping to find a teammate. Right-footed, of course. And that's going to be away from the goalkeeper, but also away from the Villa attackers. Only as far as Bojardo, though, who finds Cash. And Villa have got to be careful, because if they concede possession, there's no one at the back. Tielemans sending into the penalty area, and Ortega catches that. Ortega hoping to find a teammate with a throw, and he does. And so Villa have got to start tracking back. Hutchison, whose shoulder seems to have recovered almost miraculously. Half of the stoppages have gone. 2.5 minutes gone, 2.5 minutes left. Hutchison sending it forward. Does that stay in play? Yes, it does. Ryan Yates with the ball now. And a rather poor foul there, but it's actually a throw-in conceded by Forest. Matson. Luis. And a rather awkward-looking clearance there, but Tielemans is able to tidy it up. Finds Cash, who has Bojardo in support, passing it forward to him. Tielemans there with a pretty poor control, but yeah, just allowed it to hit both his feet there, the Belgian. But Douglas Luiz finds Torres, hoping to send it forward, and nobody's there. But the referee does award a free kick for a foul by Hutchison. So Villa do still have some chance of getting something if they can just try and find the right cross and the right pass. It is Douglas Luiz to take it. It's short to Matthew Cash. Cash to Rogers, who's now permanently anchored on the right, so to speak. And that was a poor pass that from Morgan Rogers, a lazy pass, intercepted by Dominguez, and Villa now have to go back and defend. And I think this is probably the way it's going to finish. If Forest do get a second goal, then you've got to say that you can't really look too far beyond them doing what they need to do to secure the tie at Villa Park. But Villa can send it forward. It does go beyond Milenkovic. It's with Watkins. The last minute of stoppage time. Watkins in the penalty area. Sancho. Sending it back to Watkins. A little bit far out left, though. Still 30 seconds left. Sancho. A chance for a shot, and that is straight into the grateful arms of Stefan Ortega. And with 20 seconds to go, I think it's fair to say that that is pretty much the way it would stay. So be prepared for a little edit. The seconds are ticking down. Well, there might be time for another piece of action, but has the referee signaled the end of the game yet? No, he hasn't quite. But I think there won't be time for Forest for Villa to take this. That is the end. And full time at the City Ground, it is Nottingham Forest 1, Aston Villa 0. An excellent performance from the Tree men on their home turf. Chris Wood's fine penalty deciding matters after a stupid handball by Luca Digne. Not very much to choose between both teams other than that mistake. I think Forest just looked a little bit sharper. They looked a bit more aggressive. You could tell they wanted it more. Aston Villa are not out of this. They could fancy themselves to win the second leg of Villa Park 3-1 and go through. But Forest fans, enjoy the game tonight. Long-haired Yeti, if you're watching, I might possibly, dip into your stream later on and find out how things are going with you. Now, let's go and check out some of the other scores and see what's going on there. I will refresh things as and when they happen. Now, as far as the action between Sporting Braga and Freiburg are concerned, it is we're into stoppage time there. I can see what has gone on in that game, and we'll find out a little bit more. Well, Braga have actually taken a lead, and they've just scored. Dorgeles with a stoppage time winner. It could very well be with the last kick of the game, and we're going to see some highlights of this right now. So, a great day for the Portuguese. A possible Nottingham Forest Sporting Braga final. And how wonderful would that be for João Moutinho? Well, there's basically some good play there. Cross in. A save from the keeper who parried it. Atabola was a hero in the first half, but I think he ends up the villain in the second. Wasn't really able to catch it cleanly, ending up parrying it out. And Dorgeles was on hand to poke it home. And some pretty poor goalkeeping there from the German, who was his hero with a penalty save in the first half, his team's hero, I should say. But you can see what that winner means. And I think we are going to play a little stoppage time in addition to that. I think 1 minute has already been played, and there could be room for another one. The offside flag is raised, so Freiburg will be denied that opportunity. And this could be a potential shock in the making here with, Freiburg having done really well in earlier rounds, scoring goals for fun. But a lot of work to do for them in Germany as they concede a lead here. And it is full-time in Krakow with Strand Larsen's goal proving to be the decisive one. It is Crystal Palace 3, Shakhtar Donetsk 1, so Crystal Palace have 1 foot in the final. We are into stoppage time in Spain with Rayo Vallecano and Strasbourg. Alemeo's goal so far proving the difference between the two teams. And we've now played 4 minutes of stoppage time over in Portugal, so this is an exciting ending to the game over there. And I'll take you through to the end of this game, and then we'll end the stream, and I'll have a few things to say at the very end. João Moutinho playing the entire 90 minutes. Discarded by Portugal, but still proving his worth with Braga. The European semi-final would be another feather in his cap. The European final, I should say. But Anthony Taylor, of course, refereeing this game, I should add. We've already played close to 5 minutes, so this might be the final piece of action. The Braga goalkeeper, I should say, Hornicek, has a chance to send it forward. I think that'll go out of play, and Anthony Taylor has, in fact, blown his whistle. So, full time in Braga, it is Sporting Braga 2, Freiburg 1. So, all portents pointing to a potential Forest Braga final. The home teams on the night in the Europa League winning both their semi-finals, but only by 1 goal. It is still not over by any means. And thank you very much indeed for joining in, Chelsea fan. You've been a big support. I hope I'll get to see Hanno back in sooner rather than later. And as far as Noah Atabolu is concerned, life comes at you fast. You save a penalty, but then you make an error leading to an injury time winner. Such is the reality. Tiknas putting Braga ahead, Grifo equalising in the first half. 2 goals in the first 20 minutes or so. And then Dorgeles with that breathlessly late winner. The Portuguese side winning 2-1 on Anfield. So, I am grateful that I was able to cover this game. I was hoping for better, obviously, for Aston Villa, but you've got to say that Nottingham Forest were good value for their win. They were sharper, they were aggressive. I think they managed the game very well. They didn't try to go too hard at Villa, which was what I was expecting them to do, but they made sure that they did what they had to do. And, Villa just looked disjointed. They looked completely out of sorts. And I get that people might say that is Villa's first choice lineup, but there are some players in that team, quite frankly, who shouldn't be at the club next season. And, when the going gets tough, they just have not been able to get going. And today, I think they just, they just lost out. I'm going to check and see if my friend, the long-haired Yeti, is still online. Long-haired Yeti's cave. Yep, he is still live. And I'm just going to leave a message in his chat. Yes, I've just left a message on his chat. I possibly might head over. I don't think he's going live after this. I don't think he has a StreamYard link available. But yeah, clearly the long-haired, he's quite happy, waxing lyrical about his team. Yeah, basically, Yeti's saying in reply to my comment in his chat that they're going to want to go all out in the second leg at Villa Park. Aston Villa, of course, as I mentioned, have made Villa Park a fortress in the Europa League. They've had a few disappointing defeats in the Premiership this season already, but I think they will believe that it's not over. But in Europe, it is not very easy to overcome a deficit. It is just as well, mind you, that the away goals rule is no longer in vogue, because Forest, if they were to score at Villa Park, then they would pretty much give themselves an advantage, leaving Aston Villa needing to score 3. But again, if it goes to penalties, I just wonder, Martinez against Ortega, that would be certainly, a clash for the ages. And I think Villa, though, are going to have to show a lot more in terms of desire, and I think Emery really, really needs to, work on his team. A limp performance, it has to be said, and quite a few of his much vaunted players did not do themselves justice in any way. He needs to make some changes, and his blind loyalty to one or two players could very well be what costs him. And if Villa do end up not getting Champions League football at the end of the season, which is unlikely but not impossible, then questions will need to be asked for sure. But anyway, full confirmation, the final score from the City ground. Nottingham Forest 1, Aston Villa 0. So Nottingham Forest will be taking a 1-0 lead to Villa Park in the second leg, which is to be played next week at Villa Park. Other results, Sporting Braga beating Freiburg 2-1 at home, so they have the slight ascendancy, but they've also got some work to do in Germany because Freiburg will also feel that they are not out of it by any means yet. They're still playing in, Spain. They've gone to literally 8 minutes of stoppage time over there, but I think I will probably wait for that game to finish and then, I will end the stream. But Crystal Palace look like, making a final, so we will definitely see two English teams making European finals. Crystal Palace look to be favourites. Will it be Forest or will it be Villa? We'll have to wait and see. And I think Vitor Pereira can be quite satisfied. I mean, yes, Forest's goal was a penalty, but Forest just wanted it a lot more. And, it's one of those games where the scoreline just doesn't really tell the whole story, to be honest with you. Aston Villa had their chances, but some of their play was just disjointed at times. Forest looked a lot more fluid, a lot more aggressive, and they also defended quite ably as well. And Villa never really had a sniff in the second half. Going on to 9 minutes of stoppage time in Vallecano. I think Gary O'Neill, if Strasbourg were to lose this game 1-0, will not be too disheartened because the second leg being played at home, maybe they'll fancy their chances. Yeah, quite a few Villa fans basically saying that, the thing about Unai Emery is that he's making the same mistakes every game. The players are making the same mistakes. They're not listening. Is changing the manager the right solution, or do you change the players? About 12 players in that Villa squad have been around since the time of Dean Smith, going all the way back to when they were fighting for promotion and ended up achieving it. It just looks stale at this particular point of time. Morgan Rogers looks devoid of, energy, out of ideas. I think they will look to rotate for Spurs on Sunday. And but credit to Vitor Pereira, 9 games unbeaten in all competitions, 4 in a row. He's their 4th manager this season, but he's taken them one step away from a European final and very close to Premier League safety. I think they should achieve it. Stephen Warnock saying Forest were the best team in that second half and Villa played within themselves. Never showed anything at the top end. And there wasn't even a reaction when they went 1-0 down. So Forest deserved to win. 50 miles down the road at Villa Park, so not too far much in terms of distance between the two teams. Villa are not out of it, but they've got a lot of work to do, it has to be said. And quite a few Forest fans are not too optimistic, saying 1 goal, that being a penalty, won't be enough. Villa should win at Villa Park. I'm not too sure about that. I know that Villa beat Forest 3-1 in the Premiership earlier this season, but form goes out the window. And of course, the Forest goalkeeper that day, John Victor, had a pretty poor error for the 3rd goal that Villa scored. And I don't quite know if it was 3-1 or 4-1. I'll just have to confirm that. I don't want to, give people the wrong information here. But Yes, it was 3-1 against Nottingham Forest with Watkins, McGinn and Bukhada scoring. Bukhada, of course, was the one who scored the... No, Bukhada actually got booked in that game in injury time. But it was a brace from McGinn, 49 and 73 minutes. It was 73 minutes, of course, that John Victor made that error and was later stretched off with a knee injury. And Stefan Ortega was brought in January to take his place. No minutes for Angus Gunn. The gun has been left to rot. Gibbs White, of course, scored on 61 minutes to bring Forest back into the contest, but that error from John Victor, letting McGinn in, pretty much sealed it for the Villains. And another fan saying that Morgan Gibbs White, who very nearly went to join Spurs, dodged a big, big bullet. Same sentiments with Ebereeze. And a lot of people still very, very angry about that Elliot Anderson tackle on Nottingham Forest, was probably should have been punished with at least a card. An ankle breaker, or what people called it. But again, a 1-0 deficit, not the end of the world. And it is full-time at Vallecano. It is Ryan Vallecano 1, Strasbourg 0. So we have a situation where all 4 semi-final ties have produced results. Forest beating Villa 1-0 and Braga beating Freiburg 2-1 in the Europa League. And Vallecano winning 1-0 and Crystal Palace winning 3-1 in the Conference League. So some terrific action so far. And no, Hannah, thank you for, allowing me to do this, because obviously, with some English teams in action, I mean, there is no guarantee, of course, that Arsenal will make the final of the Champions League. If they do, I'm sure you will be all over that for sure. But, there will be an opportunity to try to cover the Conference League final, and it will be wonderful to see Crystal Palace win it after a difficult season by their own standards, by Glasgow standards for sure. And it's still all to play for at Villa Park between Forest and Villa. So, that tie is not over by any means. But I want to say thank you to everyone who joined in. Thank you to Chelsea fan. Thank you to Jordan Hyman. Thank you to Moyuddin. And thank you to Nem's Talks. And I'm really sorry if there were no more comments over here. My voice must have been that boring. But I will, of course, definitely be seeing you next week as we cover this. I'm pretty sure Hanno might be able to cover this. If he can't cover it, then you'll have to put up with me and my reasonable attempt at providing commentary. But for now, though, thank you very much indeed. We'll see you all soon. Take care. God bless. Be safe. Have a good night. And keep enjoying yourselves.